For those people who brought it back from home, God bless you.
So they all have commented on this.
Okay, it's not great, but it's good. Go for it.
So I want you to turn, please, good morning. I want you to turn to the first page because I want to start our class with the singing of Shema Israel, okay? So, remember how Shema? Shema means what? Hear? Shema Israel, hear, O Israel, or originally in the biblical text, hear, O Jacob. His name was changed. This is the encounter between Jacob and the children, grown-up villains. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai is another name we use for God in Hebrew. Eloheinu, our God, Adonai Echad. So can you repeat after me? Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And then comes the answer of Jacob, Baruch Shem Kevod, blessed be the name of Malchuto. Melech is a king, his kingdom, Le'olam Va'ed, forever and ever. So the line goes, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. So the two lines together sound like this. If you'll pick it up after we do it a few times. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Second line, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Okay, so now I want you to open to page you have to get used to those pages. Page 97. I told you one of the scholars on the page is an Orthodox Jew. So the Orthodox Jews have exactly direction of how to sing the Shema. So look at the middle of the page, page 97. You have from 1 to 5 instructions of how to do it. So who would like to read number 1? Yes. Yeah, please.
It is said in a loud voice, initiated by the prayer leader, with all following together as befits the coronation of the king.
Okay, so usually in Orthodox services, there is a service leader. So the service leader does it first. It can be a rabbi or just someone with a good voice and very well educated. So they start, and then the congregation repeats the same line. So loud voice, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. So that's instruction number 1, coronation of the king. So when you sing this and you declare the greatness of God and the fact that He is one, it's the king. I mean, so some of the rituals in doing this prayer come exactly from some traditions in ancient time of how you treated a king. Okay? Number 2, who would like number 2? Please.
Oh, care is taken not to run words together, especially Yisrael and Adonai and Echad.
Wow, very important that each word is recited perfectly. You don't put, God forbid, 2 words together and you don't really, you have to distinguish every of the titles for that king. So you have to say it clear and not to put them together. What are the words that you cannot put together? Israel and Adonai, and then the other 2, Adonai and Echad. What is Echad? I mentioned to you what's Echad. 1. And now, and there will be next one, number 3 is direction about the Echad. Please, can someone read it? Yeah.
Echad is recited with a slight elongation of the
Chet.
and greater elongation of the dalet,
Go on.
emphasizing that the last letter is not a resh, since instead of echad, one, we would have
Acher, other. God forbid you'll make a mistake with the last letter of the Chad, because the Dalet looks like a resh. But if you say Acher, oh my God, you are worshiping a foreign God. Acher. One letter changing, you are destroying the entire theological foundation of the Shema. So be careful. Make sure you separate the words. So it will be, and you have to prolong it. Continue.
we would have acher, other, as if to say that God is the other deity. The dalet, however, should not be pronounced with excessive force, lest it become gibberish like echad.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to be careful. Every letter, every sound, every word has to be recited correctly. So, it will be like this. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. D. God forbid you should say R. Then you pray to another God. God forbid. But this is an attempt to try for thousands of generations to sing this sentence the same way. It's powerful. For example, in Jewish music that is sung in a synagogue, the cantor, our cantor, will always say, someone will say, where's this music coming from? Oh, it's coming from Sinai. The same time that Moses got the commandments, he also got all the music that will ever be sung for the rest of our lives. That's why he was there for 40 days. I don't think he was so strong in the music aspect. Now comes number 4, please.
Shema Israel is recited with the right hand covering the eyes to achieve
Kavanah. Beautiful. Here's a word that you need to know what it is. Kavanah is intention. You can do it if you have glasses. It's a little bit more complicated with glasses. But you say the Shema like this. And remember, I mentioned it last time. There is better, more accurate intention when you don't look at any place. I mean, you just keep it dark and you concentrate on the singing. So it will be like this. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. There is something very interesting about this, because we know sometimes when meditation comes, you find your co-religionists closing their eyes in meditation. Usually it's close your eyes. I'm following now Reverend Ellis in his meditations. I love it. But if I don't wake up after that, it just puts you so beautifully into a whole different dimension. There's something about darkness and not watching and not using the eyes to see what someone is dressed with or how someone looks. There's more kavanah. So kavanah in liturgy, in Judaism, is about intention that comes as a result of shutting out some of those other senses we have. Now, liberal Judaism did not start with closing the eyes. We have I closed the eyes when I was reciting it, but I didn't put my hand on. You can have also some kind of intention without putting the hand on. So now we have a new rabbi at Temple Israel, and he does it. And oh my God, when people saw the rabbi do this, it's like the end of the world. Oh my God, are we becoming Orthodox? Every time there is some kind of a gesture or a tradition, that we feel comfortable doing, immediately the title Orthodox. He's not Orthodox, he's a liberal rabbi. I mean, just because you do it doesn't mean you become Orthodox rabbi. Okay, now we need a glasses bag. And last one, number 5.
We say it in awe and trepidation, with a sense of newly proclaiming God King, and with the resolve that we would give up life rather than violate this belief.
Yeah, that's what the Shema is for the Jews. I mentioned it as a watchword. It's essential. It's at the core of the theological understanding of our relationship with God. So the Shema was definitely recited by Jesus. Yeah, for sure. We know this not only from the Gospels and from the writings, but we know it from the community that Jesus grew up in. Was he an Orthodox Jew once? Yeah. I think he was a nice Jewish boy. He did not have a bar mitzvah because no one had a bar mitzvah at that time. Bar mitzvah is a ritual that started a lot later, in the Talmudic time. Did he pray in groups of 10 or more? Always. Because in Jewish tradition already then, even with the minimal numbers of Jews under Roman occupation and the dispersion, it was very important for them to find communities and minimum 10 Jews. So at that time, a minyan is 10 Jews, only men, I'm sorry, at that time. The women were invited, but they were not counted as part of the 10. So the 10 comes actually from the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah and Abraham. You know, Abraham, remember what happens there? He argues with God. Are you going to destroy the entire Sodom and Gomorrah if there are 50 righteous people? No, I'm not going to do it for 50. And then they go down. They bargain. They go all the way to 10, and 10 they stop. And God then destroys Sodom and Gomorrah because there were not even 10 righteous people. So 10 is a number that we count people in a minyan, in a prayer circle. So the minimal prayer circle is 10. By the way, what happens if you have 8? No problem. You count the Torah as 9, and you count the crowns or the Torah as 10. So we always find a way to pray. But they have a rule. Yes?
I was just wondering, as you said, the 10, minimum of 10, if that had anything to do historically with Jesus having 12 disciples. Is his number of disciples all the time?
Well, the 10 was there before the 12. So
right. I wonder if that's why he chose to have
12. I mean, it is possible it comes from the 12 tribes.
Okay.
Not from the worship circle. Circle. And maybe there were no more than 12 and he stopped there. I mean, it can be also a simple answer. I couldn't find any more people. But 12 is more a sign with the tribes, the 12 tribes. And I don't know, maybe, Chris, maybe you can help. Do you remember each disciple from what tribe they came?
Well, lots of them are brothers, so they would have come from the same tribe.
So then it negates my philosophy.
But the number is probably associated with the 12 tribes. But I don't know that we know any of that for real. So it could just be that that's who we found. And of course, the joke is he should have stopped at 11, right? Because Judas betrayed him.
Without Judah, there will be no story. Come on.
There is the small group nature of it, that if you get too many people on a committee, it's too hard to manage it. So there's all kinds of interpretations about it, but the number is probably
So now you know to spend 5 different points on the Shema, you can feel the importance in Judaism of that phrase, Shema Israel. Okay, I want to go now to something from the first page. I want to go to Judith. She is a theologian. Look at the front page. It's on the bottom of the Judith Plasko, on the bottom of the first page, and then we'll go to page 98. So put your finger in 98 so you know where to continue. Okay, so who would like to read the first page?
Adonai is one. As the first learned and most familiar Jewish prayer, the Shema comes to the tongue so effortlessly that it is easy to lose sight of what it is affirming.
Okay. Yeah, so the Shema, wake up a Jew in the middle of the night, they will know it. It's familiar. Continue.
What does it mean to assert assert that God is one?
We are now at page 98. Go on.
On the simplest level, the Shema can be understood as a passionate rejection of polytheism. In the context of the commandment, you shall have no other God beside me, it is a polemic against foreign worship. It is reminiscent of the familiar Midrash, which, like the Shema, is also often learned early. That depicts Abraham destroying his father's idols because he knows instinctively that there is only one deity.
You know about the story. You know the story, the Midrash. What's a Midrash?
Parables.
A what?
The parables.
Parables. Yeah, Midrash. Excellent. Some of the style of what is assigned to Jesus, the parables, he learned it from the rabbis of that time. They will always have a story about a king and a story about a relationship between the king and some of the natives in the kingdom. And it was always about what? The king, God, and the rest of us. So this style of parables was very much known to him. So the story about Abraham and the idols is not in the Bible. It's in the Midrash. So we Jews have a lot more material to identify who we are and foundational theology that comes in other places, not just the Bible. But we kept it. We didn't reject it. Again, I want to make sure that you understand the role of a Midrash, of the parables. But it's parable stories. It's all kept, and it sheds light on, for example, Genesis. So we have a Genesis Rabbah, which is a midrashic volume of material that did not make it into Genesis. Someone had to say enough. But we kept everything. You have to see when a Jew dies, what we find in their house. Things they gathered from the other generations. We keep everything. It's useful. Sometimes it's too much. We keep too much. So in addition to the Apocrypha that you guys are familiar with, the literature that never made it into the canon on all religions, every faith community has an Apocrypha. And then the question is how you treat the Apocrypha. So the story is that the father was busy in his idol shop. That's what he did for business, Abraham's father. You didn't know that. It's not in the Bible. It's in the Midrash. But it's relevant. And he left one day, he wanted to do something else, and he left Abraham, little Abraham, to keep the shop open. He comes back from whatever he did, and he walks in, and all of the idols were destroyed, shattered, except one. in the hands of that one, Abraham put a big hammer. So the father says, what happened? Oh, what do you mean what happened? This guy did it. He destroyed all of the idols. Are you stupid? He said to his son, how can an idol do this? So Abraham, how can you worship idols? And then he runs away. So the relationship between Abraham and his father was not good. He had to run away to where? Where is he running away? To Canaan. He leaves the place where he grew up, Haran, Persia, and runs all the way to Canaan to start the covenantal relationship with God. So that story about the idol destruction is familiar to the kids. We tell the kids. And then we tell them it's not in the Bible. Okay, let's continue.
Viewed in this way, the Shema supports a popular, although inaccurate, reading of Jewish history, according to which Israel, from its very beginnings, brought to the world the idea of one God who was creator and ruler of the universe.
So this is a big lie that we continue telling, that we Jews came up with the monotheism. We know for sure the monotheism was already in Egypt. There were some priests that started believing in the single God. But it's a popular notion. We love to claim that we invented monotheism. Egypt was a lot more than just a kingdom that occupied slaves. Egypt was an empire with some brilliant thoughts. The relationship between the people, just because we think that our history started there, who else joined the Jews when they left, the Israelites when they left Egypt? Multitude of people. How can I claim that I was already a Jew when I left Egypt? But there are some stories into Judaism that, and she calls it popular notion. We have Passover. How can you, Rabbi, how can you don't believe that we went to Egypt? There are all kind of conversations and studies that claim maybe that we are all kind of different people. That this is not where actually it happened for the Jews. Judaism started a lot later. We're all multitude of slaves. Who knows from what backgrounds? But the story of Passover is extremely strong. And that's why it allows us to have a black Jewish Passover Seder. Because there is something in the African black history that is also strong with the issue of Passover. Their spirituals about their redemption are a lot better than Jewish songs of Passover. You go to some of those churches on Sunday morning, they know how to sing spirituals. Actually, there was a gift I got when I retired. They, without telling me, they invited one of the black churches choir, and there were all those spirituals, and you had to see Jews, 600 Jews in a hotel, rocking. Jews never move. They never move. And when it comes to the Shema, they can sit. Come on. So she's continuing with this. Continue.
This understanding of the Shema, however, does not address the issue of God's oneness. It defines one in opposition to many, but it never really specifies what it means to say that God, Adonai, the one who is and will be, is one.
Is God's oneness mere numerical singularity? Does it signify simply that rather than many forces ruling the universe, there is only one? A simple numerical definition of oneness is compatible with idolatry. If it is just the worship of one finite God, imaged as infinite, as if the chief deity of the Canaanite pantheon were suddenly elevated to the only one, the king of all the earth.
By the way, I mean, this is a very important question. So you have in the Bible, in the Torah, you have Adonai, God, and then you have Elohim. Elohim is what? Gods. Elohim in Hebrew means multitude of gods. So for sure, Judaism did not start with monotheism. There were a pantheon of gods in the ancient world, and out of that pantheon emerged the notion of one. And again, it didn't start with the Israelites. It started someplace in Egypt during whatever empire ruled at that time. So I don't know if you're aware, there is a theology, or there is a writing of a German scholar by the name of Wellhausen. Wellhausen introduced the notion that the Bible, the 5 books of Moses, are what? Different documents that were put together by a redactor. The important person that we need to investigate in understanding the 5 books of Moses is the redactor that made a decision what goes in, what goes out. But there were different documents. And Wellhausen gave letters to those documents. He had the E document, the J document, the P document. Every document stood for another group of people that were in charge of creating this kind of a story. So the J is the Jehovah document. The P is what? The priestly document. For example, the book of Leviticus, your favorite book, isn't it? When we have children with bar mitzvah and their text comes from Leviticus, oh my God, their mothers and fathers get a heart attack. Because suddenly the child has to read from the text about the blood that comes from a woman at a specific time. And we are trying to, and you can say, oh, don't read it. We'll find you another piece. No, you can't do that. You have to read the Torah portion that falls on this Shabbat. You know, the Torah is divided into portions. And we have portions, and every Shabbat we read another part of the Torah. So if you're stuck in the book of Leviticus, and you have a lot of portions in Leviticus, you talk about all kind of strange stuff, like making sure that the house is painted correctly, and there is nothing growing in the walls of the house, and all kind of skin diseases. I love the leprosy. Oh, those children love reading about leprosy. So what do we do about leprosy in the book of Leviticus? The commentary of 400 years provided us with an answer. Leprosy, or leper in Hebrew, is metzorah. But someone who speaks evil about someone else is motzira. Okay, listen again. Metzorah is a leper. Motzira is someone who gossips. So guess what we do in the Torah portion? We don't talk about leprosy. We talk about the leper who no one talks to because of the gossip that comes out. That's how, thank God, that someone provided us with this kind of brilliant notion. Because what are you going to do with lepers now? What is a message that the child can give on the speech of the bar mitzvah? He's not going to get any gifts if he talks about lepers. So, this is the uniqueness of the Torah, that every week we go, we read it every week for years and years and years, and every week you find another angle to talk about the Torah portion. It's never dead, it's always alive. And the role of the rabbi, the teacher, is to find different insights into the Torah portion in order to introduce new teaching for the people.
In Christianity, that's called the lectionary.
They lecture you there. Yeah. Lectionary, yeah.
Lection, well, it's from the word.
Yeah, yeah. So, but most of it.
Lecture, it says that you take portions of the Bible each time and read sections, and within 3 years, you've read the whole Bible.
Yeah. Usually, once upon a time in 3 years, the tradition was a 3 years lectionary. How many of your sermons emerge from the Jewish Bible and how many from the Gospels?
Each week has both a Hebrew Bible text and a New Testament text, as well as a psalm.
And someone is connecting the two texts together?
It's just so that you have some poetry in the midst of the other storytelling.
No, but someone came up with a lectionary and the choices because they find a relationship between the
Yes.
Old Testament and the New Testament.
Right.
Okay, so your role is to create and show them the relationship.
Sometimes, or you can just preach on one or the other.
Yeah.
But every 3 years you're doing the same text, so you always have to recreate it in a different interpretation.
Yeah, okay. So that's good. It'll be interesting once we are in the promised land to have you and a Jewish clergy take the same text and see what you guys can do. That'll be great lesson.
Yeah. I went to Rosh Hashanah this year, and I heard both Dina and Rabbi Stoller. I just did that. I can't believe I just did that. They do that to me all the time. They call me Chris and they call Eric Dr. Ellen. Rabbis were both preaching on that thing, and they any one of those sermons that they gave could have been given here. In fact, have been given here. It's just really amazing how similar the theologies hold together. That even though our scriptures may be a bit different from each other, or our interpretation of how we live that out in the world might be different, the underlying understanding about God and how God works in the world is so similar that the sermons actually are very similar.
I think the one thing we need to learn when we go to the promised land is what glasses we're going to use today. I mean, and I think we need to get used to the idea of also wearing Muslim glasses, which all of us have to learn again to see the chart of the letters and figure out how we read that piece. We don't have enough experience with that. Yeah.
When you're doing the Torah that way, do you really read every word in the Torah within the cycle? Because lectionary is not like that. I mean, you're not going to read every word in the Bible by following the lectionary. You're going to get the gist, right?
So,
Well, there are several different lectionaries now that do include the whole stories, but yeah, but the original Revised Common Lectionary that the Catholics use do not.
So, in Orthodox congregation, they read the entire Torah portion for that weekend. They read it in the morning part, and then they have few times on Friday and Saturday opportunities to divide the Torah portion into 3, and they finish all of the reading. In liberal congregations, the child, if there's a bar mitzvah, the child just reads 22 lines from the Torah. Sometimes if there's no bar mitzvah, there is more reading or less reading. We also read a part from the Haftorah. So in Jewish morning Shabbat or Torah originally is read on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. We at Temple Israel don't pray on Monday and Thursday, so there's no Torah reading. So then you try to give the gist of the Torah portion on the Shabbat. But we also read, it's divided into two readings. One is from the Torah, but one is from the Haftorah, from the other two sections of the Bible. So the Jewish Bible has three sections: Torah, prophets, and writings. So the second part of the reading can come from the prophets or the writings. And then we have special readings for holidays, which has nothing to do with the weekly order of what you need to read, but those are selected specifically for the holidays. For example, there's a holiday coming of Purim. So what will be the text we're going to read?
Esther?
Esther. Beautiful. And then on Sukkot, the holiday of the booth, when the rains start coming and we worry about the winter, guess what we read? Ecclesiastes, because it's the most depressing book in the world. So it's good to read it when you're depressed. And then Shavuot. Shavuot is the holiday of the receiving and giving the Torah on Mount Sinai. What do we read? We read the Ten Commandments. And we read it standing, because we know that everyone stood at the bottom of the mountain. So we try to replicate. What else? What other holidays we have? Passover. We don't read at all from the Torah, actually. We read from the special Haggadah. So on Passover, we read from a whole different kind of literature that tells the story of what happened in Egypt. And we did how many years ago we did Passover here?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. It was wonderful. It was 3-4 years ago, yeah. We did Passover as a teaching about how we do it. And we had all the right food and the right plates. And okay, so is this clear, the last paragraph that we read? And what we didn't really talk about is, so we picked up from Elohim, plural of God, we picked up one, Adonai, which is a single God. Okay, good. Okay, so I now remember. So I told you a little bit about Wellhausen and the theory of the documents. So in the Bible that Wellhausen produced in Germany, he put colors, those Bibles still exist, put colors for each document. So you open this Bible and you see, I mean, it comes into also a ridiculous notion that you can see in 5 verses 5 different colors. He believes that each of the lines, a verse from the Torah, is taken from a different source. Of course, who objected to this philosophy? All the Jewish commentators that they believe in God and believed in what? That the document is what? Divine. How can you believe at the same time that the document is a divine revelation of God, and then at the same time that so many hands were involved in writing it? So of course the commentators of the last 4,000 years try to bridge the gap when there's difficulty in understanding a verse or a text or a word. They will find a way to comment on this and provide a seamless rendition of the Bible. There's no gaps. If this is divine, you have to accept everything as if only God dropped it. You have Orthodox Jews that still believe today that this is a gift from God and it's a divine revelation, and you don't play with this. Which you don't have the same issue with the New Testament. It's clear. You have the names of the authors. Oh, even if they're not the one that produced it, it doesn't matter. But you have different gospels. So the gospels are not divine. Do you treat the gospels as human product?
No, no.
No what?
Well, for the strictly literalist
Yeah.
in Christianity, of which there are a lot.
You're saying it with a sigh. Which is okay. There can be a lot. It's fine. Go on.
Well, anyway, I think what it means is that God dictated to Matthew, this is what you will write. And so they believe that the words came
From God. Yeah, of course. That's a way of solving it in Christianity. Just too many people are talking to God. That's why you have one author, Moses, in relationship to the Torah and to God. Moses is really the only one seriously that saw God face to face. It's written in the Torah. He wrote it himself. He also wrote that he is very humble. That's it. Yeah, Moses is known as the most humble person. Wait a minute. Okay. You have another problem with the Torah. The last 8 verses of the book of Deuteronomy are talking about his death. Who wrote that? So those are the kind of questions that introduce some gaps in the conversation and allows for people to interpret it the way they want it. Let's continue. We can, of course.
We can, of course, say that we associate numerical uniqueness with our particular God, Adonai, affirming here both, 1, that there is only one God, and 2, that Adonai is his name. And on this view, however, attempts to name God in new ways or to broaden the range of imagery used for God are experienced as assaults on monotheism. If God is so singular as to necessitate identification with a particular image, other images must be assumed to refer to other deities.
Yeah. So we have so many names for God in the Bible itself. The rock of our ages. That's a name for God. Wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't call him the rock of ages. Maybe we should just call him Adonai. Use one name. And then in the one of the prayer books of our movement, it says God of test tube babies. Whoa! Where this is coming from? So, I mean, there is a need, I think, for us humans to come with different images for God. Are we creating a crime by using other names? And Muslims and Christians too use other names for God. Especially when it comes to silent meditation, introduction to meditations. Sometimes we introduce God in names that for the believer in one, it will look like it's idolatry. Who gives us permission to call God? And by the way, when you call God by that name, are you narrowing what God is? My mother is suggested always to talk about God in negative attributes, what God is not. Because chances are you'll be able to understand God better if you say what God is not. I don't think people understand how to do that. Why would you address God as God is not? I want to have a relationship. My God is my friend. Yeah, okay. Call him whatever you want. Is it possible that we are making from God we have difficulty of keeping God far away and so aloof, and we have difficulty with the king image, and that's why we invented all kind of other words to describe God. Are those words, those other names relevant? Is this what God is for you, but maybe for the person next to you, that's not how they envision God? How do you create this oneness in multitude of names? I'm just floating it here. Continue. Last paragraph.
There is another way to understand oneness, however, and that is inclusiveness. In Marcia Falk's words, the authentic expression of an authentic monotheism is not a singularity of image, but an embracing unity of a multiplicity of images.
Oh, wow. Yeah, how do you take all the multiplicity of names and in your mind you make them into one? Talk to me. Marshall Falk is a Jewish poet. Again, let's read this again. The authentic expression of an authentic monotheism is not a singularity of image, but embracing unity of a multiplicity of images.
Well, it's possible it's the same idea as the fable of the 7 blind men and the elephant. That all describe the elephant.
Touching it, yeah.
All describe the elephant very differently by what they touch.
It's like constructing a committee.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. Yes.
This brings up for me, sometimes when I try to think about what God is, and I think about what my impression is, then I began to think, so am I just making up a God that I would like to be this way? Then I start questioning myself, and I could get myself in trouble.
So I will suggest to you to stop thinking about it. Don't think about purple elephant. I think this is the uniqueness of the Tri-Faith Initiative. There will be an amazing opportunity there to talk about this stuff. To see what is in the mind of the Muslim. Would they say God, Allah? It's conversation that we never had before.
The Imam was here one
Yeah.
time preaching, and his topic was the 99 names
Of God, yeah.
which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know a lot of them. You can produce now 50 of them, just like that.
But it didn't mean that there were 99 gods.
No,
I mean,
of course not.
It wasn't hard to integrate the idea that 99 names were all the same entity.
So that's what Marshall Falk says,
Mhm.
that you, in a multiplicity of names and attributes, there's still the oneness of God. So God is my helper, my rock, the one I don't talk to. I mean, those are all kind of images that needs to be incorporated into saying the word God. That's why we need to be so hesitant, especially in conversation about theology with other people. So I don't know. You never shared with us what is God for you, but it'll be interesting to open a door and to be able to not to be afraid of sharing this. And then we can tell you completely that you're wrong. That's why I think sometimes people get so angry at each other's theology. It's ridiculous. Continue.
Rather than being the chief deity in the pantheon, God includes the qualities and characteristics of the whole pantheon, with nothing remaining outside
Yeah. In Judaism, both good and evil come from the same source. Judaism did not create a force that is competing with God. We don't have it in our theology. Maybe it's too, I would love sometimes to have the devil. What's wrong in having a devil a little bit? You know, that's how my mother called me, devilish. We don't have it. Because this is a higher level of multiplicity of images that still has to come together in one unity. Why would I not accept evil from God if I accept the good from God? Why is it so hard to think about this? Why do I have to create an opposition outside of God, inside of God? Where is this devil resides? I make God a lot smaller if I have also a power that constantly fights with him. The Bible, and by the way, this was my PhD work on, I decided the final work in the seminary will be about Satan in rabbinic literature. I was fascinated with Christianity. How is it possible that very short after Christians appear on the scene, a whole new theology of Satan and the devil was there? Because the Bible, the Jewish Bible, has Satan only in one place, in the book of Job. If you remember the book of Job, in chapter 1 and 2, the author of the book of Job brings Satan as a power that wages a game with God. He says to God, the reason why Job is so loyal to you is because you never hurt him. So the first chapter, in chapter 1 and 2, is the only place where the word appears, but the power of Satan in that book is limited because he does not do anything without the permission of God. So God controls Satan. Satan is another angel in the heavenly entourage that serves God as a clown at times to do mischievousness in the world. So that's the only time that the word Satan appears in the book of Job, and nothing else. So I decided something is wrong here. And of course, where did I discover the Satan? This was, by the way, before CD-ROMs. You remember CD-ROMs? Yeah. Oh my God. So this was many years ago. We didn't have the same access to the computer as we have now. So I went through, for 8 months, went to all the Jewish texts that has Satan as a character. So I translated a lot of things from Hebrew to English in order to write this dissertation. And then, of course, a few months after I was done, CD-ROM came.
Yeah.
And of course, I discovered all my mistakes because I discovered places that I didn't know. But I saw that Satan in Jewish literature was used as a literary device to teach something greater. So Satan was there as just a tool for the writer to create a more complicated scenario and more complicated theology, but still coming to the bottom line that everything is from God. Satan does not have his own brain or his own will. It's all controlled by God. But I was amazed. So for example, you don't have it in the Bible. Remember the story about Bathsheba and King David? What happened there? Terrible things happened.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, you guys have to read your Bible again.
Oh,
What?
He had her cover up. Am I remembering right? Did he have
She
her
gets
husband
pregnant.
killed?
Of course, he puts her husband. She was a beautiful woman. How did he understand who she is? So in the Jewish parables, she is getting on the roof of her house, and her house was a little bit lower than a palace. And she goes out, and she thinks that no one is watching her, and she is not totally dressed. And at that moment, King David comes to his top of the palace, and guess what happened? There were pots of beautiful flowers, and Satan comes in, shoots one of his arrows in one of the pots, and the pot falls down. At that moment, he saw her half naked. Okay. But what's the story about? The story is not about Satan. The story is about temptations. The story is about the difficulty of a king that has everything from God straying away. And then, of course, the Psalms are attributed to King David. Why? Because he needed to repent for this terrible thing that he did with the husband. And by the way, the first child dies. And then the second child of Bathsheba is who?
Absalom.
No, Solomon.
Solomon.
David had so many wives, it was so hard for him to keep a record of who he slept with who. He was as good as Samson in his stories. Oh my God, the Bible is full of pornography. There are so many interesting chapters there that you guys never touched yet. One day we'll take the Bible and use it as a tool to teach humor. It's the funniest book in the world. Purposefully done that way. So this is how I found Satan in Judaism. As a literary device. That's it. No power, completely impotent force that was then resurrected, which is legitimate. You can do whatever you want, by Christianity, and made into the Antichrist. And a power that is constantly in competition with God in some of the Christian theologies. Yeah.
Do we know, and Chris, this may be directed to you or whoever, when did that occur? When did Satan become this force in the Christian theology? Historically, do we know? Because it seems very mythological. It seems to me like it's a merging of mythology.
Yeah, it's Zoroastric. It comes from the Persian traditions that penetrated both to Judaism and to Christianity. The dualism. There was a need for that kind of a dualism in order to, out of this laboratory, to a pure, kind God to emerge and then create the other. So in Zoroastric traditions or religions, you have those two forces constantly fighting. The inception of the Persian religion is from amazing mythological war between the different gods.
It's Plato. Is the political philosopher who broke some of into dualistic approaches and stuff.
But it wasn't originally Greek.
Paul's letter, Paul's letters are all dualistic frameworks about how the world works. The Roman Empire had a dualistic thought to it. And so all the interpretation of the stories of the Hebrews through Paul's letters that we know of came through that dualistic approach. There was always the good and then the adversary, right? The creator and the adversary that shook things up. And then eventually that evolved into the understanding that if there's good, there has to be evil that balances it out for the good to be able to be seen. You can't have one without the other kind of thing. But it was never seen as a relational thing. It was seen as adversarial.
Which Judaism did not have. So Judaism had legendary, or they have stories about Satan, but only to introduce the other, the God. and definitely never gave him room in the pantheon. We don't have a pantheon. We have Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. So that's something that we all know, and we definitely know that Satan is just a literary device, brilliant device to create the tension.
Satan as a character within the Bible first appears in the temptation of Christ, right? In the desert, the 40 days temptation.
No, it's in Job.
No, but I mean within the understanding of within the New Testament situation as an actual continuing character.
I think actually it's not a bad idea to use Satan as a character in order to accentuate the purity of the other hero. We have it in Greek mythologies and different stories. The temptation of Christ will be a beautiful place to introduce Satan.
But even that, it was seen as the adversary.
Right.
I don't know that they ever actually named it Satan.
You know where in the Jewish Bible the word adversary appears earlier? Remember the prophet Bilam? He was assigned to preach against the Israelites. So he is riding his donkey, and the donkey sees an angel of God with a sword, preventing him of going to prophesy against the Israelites. But Bilam, the prophet, doesn't see. And so he's constantly hitting the donkey, doesn't understand why the donkey stopped. And the donkey suddenly talks in a human language and says, "What are you doing to me? You don't see my adversary." So adversary there is the same root, the verb to be an adversary, as le satan, Satan. So the word Satan appears as a verb, but not as a character. Only in Job it appears as a character. So So what I think happened is that it is possible the Jewish text was flirting with this notion. I think it was important to show some resistance that exists in the world in order to explain evil, but they left it. They just put some remnants of this. Oh, let's finish it now.
This is the God who is male and female, both and neither, because there is no genderedness outside of God that is not made in God's image. On this understanding of oneness, extending the range of images we use for God challenges us to find God in ever new aspects of creation. Monotheism is about the capacity to glimpse the one in and through the changing forms of the many, to see the whole in and through its infinite images. Hear, O Israel, despite the fractured, scattered, and conflicted nature of our experience, there is a unity that embraces and contains our diversity and that connects all things to each other.
Is it okay? I mean, you guys are comfortable with this sentence? So why do we argue with other people that believe in other things? Why can't we get to this reality? God is larger than any one of us can experience. And so the narrative that comes from other people sitting around tables with us is an amazing opportunity to grow in the capacity of understanding what God really means. At the core, I think, of the Tri-Faith initiative, that's a key that can open a lot of locked minds. I can't wait. I can't wait for all of us to be in the same place. I can't wait. I can't wait to see my room. I got a call. I got a call one day. So, Rabbi, you have three options. You can have a room with a door. You can have a room with a window, or you can have a room with no windows and no doors. So that was a little bit puzzling. So there is a place in the church that has some kind of a openness. So I picked up a room with a door. So I can't wait. I saw pictures. Eric sent me pictures. I know I'm next to him, which will be extremely interesting.
There are no windows in it, it just, the windows don't look outside, they look into the office.
Oh, that's the, okay, so there's a window, but not to the outside.
Not to the outside.
Yeah,
It's an interior office.
beautiful, beautiful. I appreciate whatever you give me. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about the last paragraph. Is this works with your theology? So you don't have to apologize for thinking about God in your own way. It's part of what she's talking about, part of the theology of being able to see all those concepts still through one prism. Yes?
The other thing that mentions the word infinite, to me that's the crux of the whole religious and human condition, period. I don't believe that humans can ever fully comprehend infinity.
I agree with you.
And
Because we ourselves are not.
And part of our struggle with a belief or non-belief in God is our trying to explain infinity, and for that matter, the opposite, finite.
Finite.
We don't really believe that we're finite at the core of our.
How long we can fool ourselves that we are not finite?
But
The first time you have a back pain.
Oh, we can believe that we are not, that we are changing, and et cetera, but nobody can truly imagine that they just aren't.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Why is it so hard?
we don't want to.
How many people in this room has difficulty in knowing that they are finite?
Oh, I think we can know it, but I don't think we can internally.
Well, we better start doing it.
I know.
Before we are surprised, completely surprised. Surprise! Oh my God! I didn't know that I'm finite.
I've read a quote, and I don't have it exact, and so I don't know. Supposedly Albert Einstein is one of the most famous atheists in the world. It was quoted as saying that between believing in God and believing that somehow against the rule of physics something came from nothing, he supposed God was easier to believe.
Thank God for that.
I think that each of us is going to keep living through other people just by the little bits of influence, the little bits of contact. Something like I remember things from my grandmother or something, some contact I had or things. So in a way, we are not finite because part of us keeps living through memories or influences.
Okay, I can live with this. Judaism love the teaching that the only thing that we need to worry about is leaving a good name after we die. Maybe that's enough. No, we need to leave more than that.
But in Judaism, do you not have people who believe in some kind of afterlife?
Yeah, we have. We have everything. We have everything. I mean, it's so hard to define Judaism as really, I think the only way you can define Judaism is this monotheistic notion. I think that's at the core of most Jewish believers. And then everything else is open. Oh my God, we have so many yoga people. They are a whole different world. Then we have Jews. Those are Jews that are Buddhist. We have we call them Jew-boos. We are like everyone else. We are human like everyone else. The question is, it will be interesting to find out 500 years from now if Judaism will still exist. I mean, we're so small in numbers, so we are still having conversation about survival. It's something that Christians never talk about. When was the last time you guys had emergency meeting to figure out if you guys are going to be here in 500 years? What?
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys worried about it?
The rural churches in Nebraska are worried about it.
Okay, you're right about the numbers. I think the Catholics are worried about this.
I saw recently that statistically, there are more people in the United States who claim paganism as a religion than there are Presbyterians, which I thought was an interesting comparison.
Who knows where we're going to move theologically? I mean, God willing, this tri-faith initiative will last for many years after we're dead. Oh, I'm upsetting people here. Yeah, it's a fact. It'll be interesting to see what will that experiment will lead to. I just want to stay a little bit longer just to see. That's all. Okay, so. But it'll be interesting to see what that will produce. I think it's fascinating. I think living in this world is such a gift to be able to contemplate those kind of things. I don't think anyone knows what will happen to us. We know that we're not going to move from there because we spend a lot of money on the building. If you want to force people to talk to each other, build buildings that are expensive and then you're going to stay there forever. But it will give us a little more courage, because where are we going to go from there? Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think that last statement just really embodies what countryside is about. It mentions embraces and contains the diversity. And I think, just in my experience, I've only been a member here a little over a year and a half, but the people that I've met and been in other classes with, we come from such a broad spectrum of other places. I haven't met too many people that were born in the Congregational Church here. And, having come from, a Catholic background and then a Methodist background and then to this church, to me this just kind of matches up perfectly what this church is about, but it's in direct opposition to a lot of other Christian experiences.
But what are the challenges? I mean, I think it's beautiful the way you introduce it, but this comes with challenges. What are the challenges that this church has as a result of people coming from different kind of places?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm asking you that. I don't know the answer. I mean, definitely there's a understanding. You guys have two clergy that are coming from different seminaries. How this works?
3.
Oh, 3. Okay, you're right. Will. No, but I'm thinking about the possibility of Temple Israel hiring an Orthodox rabbi on the staff of the other rabbis. Ain't gonna happen ever. I mean, it's one Judaism, but completely different kind of Judaism.
But we don't have anybody from literals.
From what?
We don't have anybody from a literalist
Yeah.
or extreme fundamentalist.
Count your blessings. Yeah. I mean, even the invitation for me to come and teach, that's an amazing, there's no other church in the country that has a Jew, a rabbi, in a room in the church, ever. You guys are unique.
It's our privilege.
And I'm crazy. You guys are unique and I'm crazy.
It's our privilege.
Thank you. That's how I feel too. I wonder what the message is to other places. I wonder if ever there was any kind of words from other clergy, from other churches, not understanding what you guys are doing with me.
Yeah, I don't usually talk to those people though. But there's more and more conversation among especially the Abrahamic faiths. There's 2 or 3 people that I went to seminary with that are now engaged in interfaith conversations, and they invite each other to each other's places to
Yeah.
speak. They're not as involved as we are as far as building worship spaces together in a commons area, but they do have ongoing conversations with each other, and they teach together, and they go around and preach together. And
Yeah, it's definitely.
There's that happening.
Yeah, it's definitely in now, those Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
It took us too long
It's
to
not-
discover
It's
that.
not within the evangelical tradition.
But it is interesting that when you say what are the challenges, well, obviously, when we come from a lot of different things, kind of hurting us in the same general direction is perhaps more challenging than in some situations. Within the UCC, the difference between a city church and a small rural church is significant in terms of how you feel. And yet I had a chance to go to the annual conference, which is a statewide gathering. Most of the people there are from small churches. I mean, that's going to be numerically the most churches represented are small and rural. And just extremely thrilled over the idea of a tri-faith. Those churches are very supportive. Now, maybe they wouldn't want to do it themselves, but they're very supportive when somebody is.
They don't have any chance of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
themselves.
They don't have the people.
So they live vicariously through someone who can.
Yeah.
They bring that in.
And you guys are doing a good job in telling the story. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, appearing in those conferences and talk about your experience.
Yeah.
We had groups that came from outside, from Nebraska someplace, and I remember meeting them.
Oh, there still are several groups that are coming from all
Yeah.
over the place, to come hear the story.
I want you to go to the second part. We'll start there and we'll continue with this. So we're going to use this one more week. Again, if you don't trust yourself, leave it here. So the Shema, look at page, I don't know what, page 100, okay, 100, which does not appear on the bottom of the page. So it's before 101, which, 101 appears. So this is the 100. So this is the second part of the Shema. So the Shema, we started with, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And then comes the second part, which is also in the Gospels. It appears not in completely the text here. It's in different places in the Gospels. So who would like to read in the middle of the page, verse 4? Anyone?
You shall love Adonai, your God, with all your mind and body and strength. Keep these words, which I command you today in mind. Instruct your children about them. Use them when you sit at home and when you walk about, when you lie down and when you stand up. Bind them to
That's 101. Bind them.
your hand as a sign and set them between your eyes as a symbol. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates.
Yeah.
That's
So
beautiful. Yeah.
this comes together as a paragraph. Look, immediately the concern about the children, education. You have to teach this to your kids. Those are words that the child recites when in the bar mitzvah part of the service that the congregation has. So what are we required to do? Love God with what?
All your heart.
All your heart.
All your mind.
Now,
Body and strength.
yeah, I mean, which is wonderful. Some of the commentary on the word hard. Hard in Hebrew is here in the second line, levavcha, has two vets. Levavcha. In Hebrew, lev is a heart. Here has two vets. So the commentary is even if you have moments when you are split in the way you feel, you need still to love God with one heart. Lev echad. So they put two vets to show that sometimes we have challenges in understanding what is the requirement here. Love God with all your heart. They put two vets, two letters, vet, to show that sometimes even when you have hesitations, even if sometimes you don't know how to do it, loving God with all your heart, you need to bring those two opinions together to create one unity. I said to you before, definition of Judaism in my eyes is being able to have two opposing views in your mind at the same time, and both of them are kosher. So even in moments when you have two bets, two options to think about something, still think about God as one unity. Lev, your heart. What after heart? What's the next word after heart?
Mind.
Mind, which is interesting. Nefesh in Hebrew is soul. There's no difference in Judaism between soul and mind. Your soul and mind are one. The mind is important to make sure that you keep it in your mind. Not only your heart, but in your mind. And then what else is the third word? With all your strength. How do you think strength was interpreted by the commentators? Strength, wealth. You need to, that's what they did in the temple when it was built in Jerusalem. They brought, every pilgrimage brought a wave of animal sacrifice. You need to support God with all your strength. Strength equals wealth, whatever wealth you have, whatever you can afford. They never specify what it is. But that's the commentary for the word strength. So we need to support God, we need to love God with our hearts, our soul, our mind, and our strength. And what else it says? Make sure that those words that I am telling you, you put them on your heart and you teach them to your children. By the way, it's not children, it's boys. Yeah, Banecha. Ben is a son in Hebrew. Bat, so you have bat mitzvah, bat is a girl, Ben is a son. Here, teach them to your children, your sons. They put the translation of children because it's more polite, more elegant. But it's sons. By the way, in Jewish tradition, you have to have two kids. Or you have to have two options. Two sons or one boy and one girl. But the sons, we know this from our own lives. Sometimes more attention was being put on the sons and who gets to the university, to the college, than sometimes the girls. This is not now. God forbid you'll say this now. You'll be crucified. In a generation of Me Too, wow, we are learning how to clean our language. Isn't it true? Except those people in Virginia. Wonderful. So, and then comes the reference to the tefillin. We talked about this. The reminder on the hand and on the head. And you have to talk about God's words when you lay down and when you get up. So you have to have evening service and you have to have morning service. When you walk and you lay down, and you have to tie them upon your hand, and you have to put them on the, on the mezuzah, on the doors. Those words are in the scroll inside what Jews have on the right side of the door. It's okay. It's exactly 11:30. It's fine. Perfect.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. I'm sorry I took a little bit longer. Thank you. Bring this next time if you want. It'll wait for you here. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
Try to stay dry.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's wonderful. My brain is full.
I never get it completed.
You look like sunshine up there.
That's a story.
I can't write a whole time. Because I want
So good.
And while you're writing, your mind's trying to concentrate on that, and then it's going on what he's saying,
Yeah.
and I'm never even.
Yeah.
No, I missed last week. I just missed everything. I stayed home all day. It was one of those, I got up and oh, I always turn off.
Thank you.
Wow, it's great. This was great. I keep hearing about it. I see quite a few of my ladies' lunch ladies here too.
Oh,
I know.
I
I
didn't
love
know
it.
you were having
So,
a new
yeah,
one.
it's nice. I shouldn't say mine. Our ladies' lunch.
Complicated situation, but it's
You were there.
little
You were there.
story.
Okay.
Mike Kelly.
I'll take them, okay.
Wants to get really into that story.
I have
But he's involved. He is going to be that.
what's the story about? Your
So have you gone down?
Never knew his father. His father went. He was
Stories down there. So they're
And recently, they thought
having
he
a
was
really
one of the men that one of the soldiers that helped
By the
raise that
elevator.
time from American flag. But they're not sure it's
that's where
him.
he is.
But it doesn't matter because it's a great story. And so they're going to have a memorial for his
her
father
parents.
in Council
Yeah,
Bluffs
same
in
time.
March.
She just graduated from college.
They were friends. That's where his body is, and they're going to have the military come and do it.
Through friends.
Yes,
And then
yes.
they got
So,
together last May and
She's having a big thing, and she wants people to know about it. It's such a deep story, too.
Oh, tell me about it. Oh my gosh, things happen, yeah.
I'm glad.
I heard he was
The
semi.
real story, the bottom line is
Okay, so
that this little
I'll
baby,
definitely create a connection.
everybody
Oh, I
wants to
love
look
it.
for.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
He's
that.
very supportive of the tribe. He loves the tribe.
You know, for him.
And I love him for that.
Very happy and supportive.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right. Such a gift.
It is a gift.
Are they going to take care of the baby while she works, or how is that?
She's gonna work in the evenings.
Chris,
to see-
you have this stuff working still.
So they can watch. Her dad was retired
You have to erase the last few.
Oh, yeah, okay.